It really reminded me of the very beginning of the opening up and the reform, and it also set Shenzhen, Shantou, Guangzhou as the pilot zone to try some capitalism practices. And it is the same way to reform the resources access and the capital which was owned by the state. If it is successful, it will be promoted to the whole China. And I think that is the same way, and we could see for the short term it really works because a number of state-owned access are sleeping; they were not effectively adopted, and some resources were not better or well exploited. Some state-owned companies are very deficient in the explorations, and they could not make any value-added perfection or products compared with some private companies. They are very good at it because I believe only those private companies or foreign company or foreign funded companies could do that because they are fighting for themselves. That is the point. And I think before the opening up and reform in China, there was no private companies, and all of the resources, assets, and capitals belong to the holy party, and that is the fact because some private economic or business was not allowed in China at that time. But after the opening up and the reform, it is allowed. And in my opinion, Chinese people are in pursuit of money, and that is a tradition. We will call the Jewish in Orient, and I think I remember Israel was founded in 1984, and the Jewish people did not have their own country for thousands of years, and they have to live in Europe or live in some other place in Middle East for thousands of years. They were not allowed to own properties or land, and their life was very miserable and sad. So there is a heresy. The Jewish capital has already influenced the whole world deeply. I'm not so sure that is true or right. And Chinese people are in pursuit of treasure, and Israeli people are seeking for money, and I believe there are something same because Jewish people are not allowed to enjoy any political rights in those European countries or in Middle East. They were not allowed to own land. So what could they do to make their lives secured? They could only seek for money, and it is the same to China. And for thousands of years, if you are common folks or average people in different dynasties in China, okay, were not allowed to enjoy any political rights, or you are not allowed to own land. You are just a peasant. You are not farmer. So if they want to lead a better life, or if they want to upgrade their livelihood, what should they do? Okay, they could only seek for money or in pursuit of treasure, and I believe there are something safe between the two. And if the limits are loosened, okay, the economic will jump ASAP, and that is really really the truth. We have already noticed that for many times during the history, even now. And then some people may say, okay, there is a wise emperor, and there are some open-minded leadership, and or some leaders, and the leadership is excellent, so they push the economic development. But I just do not believe so. I think it is the economic development which pushed up the governmental reform and revolution. And we could see that in history, that especially in some European countries or During the age of industrial revolution, it indeed updates or generates some social transformation, and those overlaws they had to surrender to the bourgeois democratic revolution, and because they are lack of money and their leadership is really unwise, and so it is the economic development which promote or push the feudal society to the capitalism. I believe so. And when it comes to China, that is completely a different story. What is China's social system? Is it socialism? I do not believe so. I think China's social society as a social system can be described as a stitched together monster, or it can be called Frankenstein. It is a semi-dictatorship and semi-bureaucratic capitalism, but it is not completely a socialism, just as described in some Marxism, or which was just practiced in North Korea. That is completely different. And some former Chinese decision makers or top level officials, they have already pointed the same problems, that we have to work with two legs. It means that if there is no political restructuring, the economic reform will not be safe. And if our hands are curfewed, we cannot make any more labors, or we cannot produce any more. And our workforce is completely limited, and it may make some businessmen unsafe in China, and because the state-owned access or capital or resources is still uncertain, and there is no clearly established ownership for those resources, capital, or access, and it was not written in law and was not secured by some regulations or stipulations, and I think that is the point, because it only allows some private entrepreneurs or businessmen to run the state-owned resources, but your life is controlled by our country or the party, and okay, if you make the money, okay, we will want you to return it. That is the so-called Damocles sword, and even there is not only one word, there are a number of words hanging over your heads, and if you can run the business bigger and stronger, and buy some favorable policies or buy some governmental resources, okay, after making money, the government will begin to charge you, and you have to return it to the country, and it only allows you to run it or to manage the state-owned resources, access, and capital temporarily, and finally they will collect all of them from you, and that is the most concern, because some private companies, and I have to say some private companies have already shared over 80 employment in the whole market, and it has already overperformed some state-owned companies which was backed by some favorable policies, or they are allowed to conduct some monopolized business in some certain fields such as energy and so on. And our company has to boost or speak high about the socialism, and we have always boost its superiority, but Okay, we just say they are socialist. However, if you could looking into the core, it is completely not. And even now, we could see some private companies are marginalized, and the central government still gave top priority to those state-owned companies or enterprises, and they have enjoyed they are they have enjoyed the favorable resources, and they are listed atop, and that is a real phenomenon in China, and so there is a situation some media has already noticed that the state is advancing, but the private sector is retreating, and it could see in many fields and industries. And we are now still holding some positive media promotion for those state-owned enterprises, but we have already witnessed some bad example in those automotive company and its management moves. And lots of young men want to work in some state-owned companies for the better salary or better welfare. But the core reason is the stability. They could work at that company to their retirement, and that is the truth. So our government has provided a longer whitelist to private companies, and it can allow some private companies to enter into some specific industry which was only allowed to state-owned companies, and it seems that they are become wider and opener than before, but we still pay the government still pays high importance to those state-owned companies, and now even now they want to replace some private companies with state-owned corporations, and they want to make the state-owned enterprise more competitive than before, and even it kept the same direction unchanged for so many years, and I believe all those practices are not workable or not good for the market-oriented economic, and it may be it may be getting some success temporarily, but it cannot run farther. I believe so.